What if purpose can be found in the way you live, the way you love, the way you create, the way you encourage people, and the way you become more honest about who you are? That is what I want to talk about today because I think we have placed so much pressure on the word purpose that sometimes we're too intimidated to even explore it. And when I say soul, I'm not necessarily talking about religion. I'm talking about the deepest and most honest part of you underneath your job title, your responsibilities, your fears, and everything you have been taught you're supposed to be. And when I talk about your soul's purpose, I'm talking about that honest part of you that desires to experience life and express yourself through you. It may be through something you create, and it may be through something you create for people. It may be the way you care for people. It may be through your voice, your wisdom, your presence, or the example you set. Your purpose may not look the way you expect it to look, but that doesn't mean it isn't meaningful. We have made purpose feel too big. Somewhere along the way, we started thinking that purpose had to be connected to recognition. If a million people don't see it, does it count? And if it doesn't make money, does it count? If we can't turn it into a business, a ministry, a brand, or some large platform, does it still matter? And I believe the answer is yes. It still matters because everything that gives your life meaning does not have to become something you sell. Everything that makes you feel alive does not have to become your full-time career. Every gift you have does not need an audience, and every act of purpose does not need an applause. You may have been overlooking your purpose because you thought it had to be something big, impressive, or profitable. Have you ever felt like you were supposed to be doing something really big with your life, but you had no idea what that big thing was? Maybe you've watched people discover their purpose. They started a business, they wrote a book, they built a platform, they changed careers. They created something that reached thousands of people, and you started wondering, well, what am I supposed to be doing? What is my big purpose? What am I here to accomplish? And if you couldn't come up with some powerful answer, maybe you started feeling like you were behind, like everybody else received clear instructions on their life, but somehow yours got lost in the mail. But girl, what if your soul's purpose doesn't have to be something big? What if your purpose isn't one huge assignment? What if it can be found in the way you live, the way you love, the way you create, the way you encourage people, and the way you become more honest about who you are? Maybe your purpose in this season is learning how to take better care of yourself. Maybe it's creating a peaceful home after growing up without one. Maybe it's becoming the kind of mother, friend, partner, or woman you needed to be. Maybe it's going back to school. Maybe it's finally setting a boundary. Maybe it's learning how to speak up for yourself. Maybe it's resting without feeling guilty. That may not sound big to the world, but when you have spent years living in survival mode, choosing peace can be life-changing. Purpose can be quiet. We tend to notice loud purpose. We notice the speaker standing on the stage. We notice the person with thousands of followers. We notice the best-selling author, the successful entrepreneur, or the persons whose story reaches the news, but we don't always notice quiet peace. We don't see the woman who encourages her coworker during a difficult time. We don't see the mother who is intentionally breaking a pattern so that her children can experience something healthier. We don't see the friend who always knows how to make people feel heard. And we don't see the woman who creates beautiful things in her spare time because creating brings her back to herself. We don't see the person who decided that pain would not turn her bitter. Quiet purpose may not be celebrated publicly, but it still changes lives. Sometimes one conversation changes one person. One encouraging word keeps somebody going. One woman choosing to heal can change an entire family. It may be quiet, but it is not small. Your purpose can change with the season. Another thing I'm beginning to understand is that purpose may not always look the same throughout our entire lives. We put pressure on ourselves to choose one purpose and stay with it forever. But we do grow. Life changes. Our responsibility changes. Our interest changes. We learn new things about ourselves. What felt meaningful to you 10 years ago may not feel aligned with the woman you are becoming today. But that doesn't mean that you failed, and it doesn't mean that you wasted your time. It means you lived through a season, learned what it came to teach you, and now you may be ready for something different. There may have been a season where purpose was surviving. You're doing what you had to do to make it through. There may have been a season when your purpose was taking care of your family. There may be another season when your purpose is rebuilding your identity outside of what everybody else needs from you. Maybe you're entering a season of creating, building, exploring, or finally listening to the ideas that keep returning to you. We have to give ourselves permission to evolve. Alignment is making choices that honors what you understand. You don't have to force a past version of yourself to fit the woman you are today. Crown Energy is about awareness, alignment, and becoming. Awareness is recognizing what is happening inside of you. Alignment is making choices that honor what you understand. And becoming is allowing yourself to grow into the woman you are creating. That process may be part of your purpose too. Purpose doesn't always begin with certainty. A lot of us are waiting on some big moment or some big clarity. We want the full version, the step-by-step plan, the guarantee that everything will work. We want to know exactly where the journey will take us before we agree to begin. But purpose doesn't always arrive in a complete instruction. Sometimes it begins as curiosity. You keep thinking about learning something new, and sometimes it begins as frustration. You realize that a part of your life no longer feels right. Sometimes it begins as excitement. You do something simple for the first time in a long time, and then you feel alive. Sometimes purpose begins with a problem you want to help solve. Sometimes it begins with a story you feel you're ready to share. And sometimes it begins with one small idea that won't leave you alone. You may not understand the entire reason yet. You may only know that you feel drawn towards it. And that is enough information to take one small step. You don't have to name your life's purpose before you begin exploring what feels meaningful. You don't need a full business plan to buy the notebook. You don't need thousands of followers to record the first video. And you don't need to know whether you'll ever make money from it before you give yourself a chance to enjoy it. Now, let that sink in and let me repeat it for the ladies in the back of the room. You don't need to know whether you'll ever make money from it before you give yourself a chance to enjoy it. Sometimes the next step is simply paying attention. You don't have to monetize everything you love. Now, listen, I believe in creating opportunities. I believe women can build businesses, create extra income, and use their gifts in the way that supports the lives that they want to live. I'm working towards those things myself, but I also believe we have to be careful not to turn every part of ourselves into work. Some things can belong to our joy. Some things belong to our healing. Some things can belong to our peace. Maybe you love to bake, but you don't want to run a bakery. Maybe you love encouraging women, but you don't want to become a motivational speaker. Maybe you love decorating your home, writing in your journal, sewing, gardening, or taking pictures, but you don't want to build a business around it. You are still allowed to do that because it still has value. Your soul may be asking for expression, not employment. And sometimes when we immediately ask, how can I make money from this? We place pressure on something that was helping us breathe. Everything doesn't need to produce income to be productive. Joy produces something. Peace produces something. Creativity produces something. Feeling connected to yourself again produces something. It changes how you show up in the rest of your life. Purpose begins with living honestly. And maybe your purpose isn't about asking you to become famous. Maybe it's asking you to become free from an identity that no longer fits, free from needing everybody's approval, free from believing that Your worth depends on how much you accomplish, free from spending your entire life performing roles while feeling disconnected from the women underneath them. And sometimes purpose begins when you stop pretending. You may admit that you're tired. You may admit that the dream you keep dismissing still matters to you. You may have admit that you have outgrown something. You may have admit that you don't have all the answers, but you're ready to start asking better questions. That honesty can change the direction of your life. And it's not because you immediately blow everything up and you start over, but because you stop abandoning yourself inside the life you already have. You begin making room for your voice. You start honoring what gives you energy. You notice what drains you. You start trusting yourself enough to make small, intentional changes. That is purpose too. So stop measuring your purpose against someone else's life comparison. That will have you overlooking the meaningful things that you are already doing. You'll be looking at someone else's platform and miss the person whose life you touched. You'll be looking at somebody else's business and forget that you finally had the courage to begin your own idea. You'll be looking at how far someone else has gone and ignore how far you have come. Somebody else's purpose is not the measurement of yours. You don't know what their journey required. You don't know what season they're in, and you don't know what your small beginning may eventually become. But even if it never becomes bigger, it can still be meaningful. Maybe the goal isn't to reach everybody. Maybe it's to be fully present with the person you are meant to reach. Maybe the goal isn't to be known by thousands of people. Maybe it is to finally know yourself. Maybe the goal is to build the biggest life. Maybe it is to build a life that honestly feels like yours. I want you to sit with these 3 questions. First, what makes you feel most like yourself? Not what impresses people or not what makes the most money, but what makes you feel connected, present, and alive? Second, what comes naturally to you that you may be overlooking? Maybe people always come to you for advice. Maybe you know how to make people feel comfortable. Maybe you're good at organizing, explaining, creating, nurturing, designing, or listening to people bring ideas. So we often overlook our gifts because we think it's normal to us. And third, what is one meaningful thing you can do with that part of yourself right now? Not 5 years from now, not after you quit your job, not once everything becomes perfect, but what can you do right now? Can you give it 30 minutes a week? Can you help one person? Can you create one thing? Can you research one idea? Can you give yourself permission to explore without demanding any immediate results? Purpose grows through participation. Sometimes you understand it by living and not by sitting still because you're trying to figure out the entire plan. Your sole purpose does not have to be some huge, impressive assignment. It doesn't have to come with one stage, a business, a title, or thousands of people cheering you on. Your purpose may be found in the woman you are becoming. It may be found in how you treat people. It may be found in the cycle you decide to break. It may be found in the courage to choose a more honest life. And it may be found in the small things you create after work. Even when you're tired, it may be found in the way you help another woman believe that is not too late. And yes, your purpose may eventually grow into something big, but you don't have to be pressured for it to become something meaningful. Somewhere you start. Pay attention on what brings you alive. Honor what feels true. Give yourself room to explore and stop thinking your life has to look impressive before it can have purpose. Sometimes purpose begins quietly. It begins when a woman decides, I want to live more honestly. I want to know myself again, and I want to use what is inside of me. I want to experience life, not just survive it. That is Crown Energy. It is not about having everything figured out. Listen inward, trust what you hear, and take one aligned step at a time. So girl, I want you to tell me in the comments, what is one quiet purpose that is already showing up in your life? Maybe it's through encouraging people. Maybe it's through creating. Maybe it's through raising your children differently. And maybe it's through healing yourself. Whatever it is, don't dismiss it because it doesn't have to be big. Just honor it and give it room to grow. And if this message helped you release some pressure to find one huge calling, subscribe to the Crown Energy and continue this journey with me as we move from survival mode toward purpose, one honest step at a time. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and always honor what feels true and aligned for you.